Everybody, peace. Welcome to the Started by the College Football Show. Wherever or have you are listening, we are so grateful to have you here with us. As you guys know, I'm your host, Casuan, and we got a very interesting show for you today, guys. We are going to be recapping the initial rankings made by the College Football Playoff Committee for the 2023 season. Listen, there's no other way around it. That's what we're going to be discussing today, and I know a lot of people were surprised by who was listed at number one with Ohio State, but listen, we're going to cover all that, guys. Don't worry. But before we get into any of that, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well, so you guys can stay up to date on all of our latest content that we post daily. And be sure to follow us on Patreon as well. You can do so by going to patreon.com, click on the search bar, and typing in Started by the Show. That way you can get access to all of our exclusive content that we post daily. And if you'd like to support our network and our company, you can do so by following the link in the ticker below at streamelements.com/startedbybtheshow/tip. Once again, it's streamelements.com/startedbybtheshow/tip. None of this is possible without you guys as fans, so we're so grateful and honored for all the love and support that you show us, and it's a pleasure and honor to have this platform with you guys. So, with that being said, let's go and get right into it, guys. Listen, we're going to be recapping the initial rankings made by the College Football Playoff Committee for the 2023 season. And we just started at 25, worked down to number one. So at number 25, we have Air Force. Air Force has been playing dominantly throughout the course of the season. I don't believe anyone expected Air Force to be as good as they are now. Listen, 24, we have Tulane. Once again, Tulane started the season a little slow, but they have picked up quite a bit as of late. And number 23 at K-State. As you guys know, K-State had a couple losses early on in the season, particularly to Missouri. But as the season goes on, we see that loss looks better and better. They were not in the top 25 2 weeks ago, but they have been in the top 25 according to the AP poll since last week. And it appears that obviously the CFP believes that K-State is deserving to be in the top 25, so they are back in at number 23. 22, Oklahoma State. As you guys know, Oklahoma State has 2 losses. You could argue they're the third best team in the Big 12, behind obviously Texas and Oklahoma. And you could argue that Oklahoma State will be able to put up a match with Oklahoma when they play later on in the season, based on the way that Oklahoma's defense has struggled as of late. And number 21, we have Kansas. Kansas ranked. This is the highest ranking Kansas had in the past 7 years, coming off the heels of a resounding victory over Oklahoma last week, in which they won 38-33. And number 20, we have USC. USC, as you guys know, has struggled this past month with losses to Notre Dame and to Utah. Both of those being blowout losses, and people have now started to see what USC really is, and a team that struggles against physicality and that still does not have a defense, even going back to last year. But still, they're ranked at number 20. At number 19, UCLA. We saw UCLA was able to do against Colorado this past weekend. Unless we know that UCLA also has one of the best defensive lines in the country. Obviously, one of the more physical teams in the Pac-12, and they've got a couple games on their schedule coming up, and they could very well put their name in consideration for playing for the Pac-12 championship. And speaking of Pac-12, we got another Pac-12 team in Utah, number 18. As you guys know, Utah just beat USC this past weekend. They've been playing all year without their starting quarterback, Cam Rising, and I have no question that Cam Rising was healthy, has been playing this year, then Utah will be ranked in the top 10, no question about it. And there'll be a couple losses that they have from this year would not be losses if Cam Rising was playing. Listen, the defense has been phenomenal all year. Offense though has struggled, and Utah, another Pac-12 team that will be attempting to make noise in the Pac-12 and try to upset teams like Washington. And you saw they struggled already against Oregon though. And at number 17, we have Tennessee. Listen, Tennessee, again, 2 losses on the year. After they defeated Florida early on in the season, they went into a little bit of a cold stretch where they struggled. They also suffered a loss against Alabama on the road, in which they were held to under 300 yards of total offense. But Tennessee, since then, has started to improve. They're starting to get better, and obviously the committee is thinks highly of Tennessee based on the wins that they have. So they're ranked at number 17. Number 16, we've got another Pac-12 team in Oregon State. Listen, you guys know how I feel about Oregon State. Oregon State, in my opinion, was the 3rd best team up until last week in the Pac-12, behind Washington and Oregon. After though they suffered a loss to Arizona this past weekend, they dropped down to number 16. No question about it, they would beat Arizona. They'd be ranked I think they'd be ranked at the highest, number 11. But though they suffered that loss to Arizona. And at 15, we have Notre Dame. Listen, I still do not understand how Notre Dame is ranked so high. I know they got a good victory over USC, but we have seen what USC is, and that victory over USC starts to look less and less credible as the season goes along. Listen, Notre Dame has struggled all year. I'm not sold on Notre Dame. You guys know how I feel about Notre Dame. They're overrated. Their offenses can be non-existent at times. Yes, they're physical, especially in the trenches, in that front 7 defensively. But what offense have they played that's formidable? We know that Ohio State doesn't have the best offense. We know that USC struggles against teams that are physical. So they haven't really, in my opinion, I don't think that they have played anyone of ilk. We saw what happened when Notre Dame played Louisville. What happened when they lost? They got blown out the building. So I'm not sold on Notre Dame. Personally, I don't think Notre Dame should be ranked in the top 25, but that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the chat room about that. But 15 is entirely too high for Notre Dame. Number 14, we have LSU. Listen, LSU, we know it has one of the best offenses in the country. However, they also have one of the worst defenses in the country as well. That loss they suffered against Missouri. Sorry, they beat Missouri. The win they have against Missouri is starting to look better and better. And obviously they lost to Florida State the first game of the season. No shame in that at all. But also the loss they have against Ole Miss early on in the season is starting to look better and better as well. One of the two, perhaps the best 2-loss team in the country, you could argue. And number 13, you have Louisville. Listen, we just talked about Louisville and what they did against Notre Dame early on in the season. And with North Carolina losing this past weekend, you could argue that Louisville is the 2nd best team in the ACC and will be playing for the ACC championship game when it comes to conference championship week. But that remains to be seen. Still a couple more games to be played. And at number 12, we have Missouri. Listen, Missouri is one of the best offenses in the country as well. We know they have a win against K-State. They have come on strong as of late, and we know that they played Georgia this weekend. This will be the best team that Georgia has faced all year, and we'll get a true test of what Georgia really is. Even though Georgia did put on a strong performance this past weekend against Florida. So we have number 12, Missouri, another one of perhaps the 2nd best team in the SEC East Division. And number 11, we have Penn State. Listen, Penn State suffered a loss 2 weeks ago to Ohio State. Penn State and Notre Dame are pretty much the same in my eyes. 2 overrated teams that are strong defensively on the interior, but have an offense that can be non-existent at times, and they always appear to be ranked too high. Now, I know, before Penn State lost to Ohio State, I had Penn State as the 2nd best team in the country, because I thought that Penn State's offense would be able to show up in big moments based on what I had seen so far earlier in the season, but I was wrong about that. And Penn State is the old Penn State, and Notre Dame is old Notre Dame. Penn State is Notre Dame, and Notre Dame is Penn State. Now, I started getting into the top 10. Number 10, we have Ole Miss. As you guys know, Ole Miss has suffered losses against Alabama, and the other team they lost to is slipping my mind, but you guys can leave the name of that team in the chat room. But Ole Miss, as you guys know, suffered a loss against Alabama. One of the best offenses in the country. Another team that struggles defensively as well, though. Perhaps the second or third best team in the SEC West Division. You could debate who's better between Ole Miss and LSU. But the Ole Miss won that head-to-head matchup. But listen, Ole Miss, it ranked in top 10. Like I said, one of the best offenses. Defense is starting to come on strong as well. It's been playing much better the past couple of weeks. And they're ranked at number 10. Obviously, the committee is sold on them. Number 9, we got Oklahoma. As you guys know, Oklahoma got upset last weekend against Kansas. But perhaps has the best victory of the season over Texas. I don't think so, but some people might believe that. Oklahoma struggles on the defensive end. They struggle in the passing game as well. They rely on the running game, which is odd for a Big 12 team, but nonetheless. And are they primed for a rematch of when they played Texas earlier in the season in the Big 12 championship game? Listen, you guys know how I feel about the Big 12. I think the Big 12's all but eliminated themselves from the college football playoff race this season already, because either way, you're going to have at least a one-loss champion in the Big 12, and I don't think that's going to be good enough to move out these other teams in the college football playoff rankings, especially in the top 4, especially since we have so many teams that are undefeated still this late in the season. So look at Oklahoma at number 9. Number 8, we have Alabama. In my opinion, Alabama is the best one-loss team in the country right now. They're starting to peak at the right time. One of the best defenses, particularly best secondaries in the country. Offense is starting to find their identity. They're playing much more akin to the Alabama team from 2015 and from 2009, where it's a lot of ground and pound. You control the clock. Not as explosive as the more recent offensive teams from Alabama. Still efficient, though, nonetheless. Still winning games. Listen, they have wins against Ole Miss and Tennessee. Both these teams in top 25. They have a loss against Texas. And that, in my opinion, I believe is the best win in the season across the board. Was Texas defeating Alabama in Tuscaloosa. It says a lot about Alabama. It says how good they actually are. And in that game, they put up 34 points. So, that's that loss looks better and better as the season goes along for Alabama. But I think Alabama is primed to, if they win out, they beat LSU this weekend. They're going to beat Auburn, and they go on to defeat Georgia in the SEC championship game. There's no way that you can leave Alabama out of the top 4. If Alabama wins this weekend against LSU, you have to move them into the top 5, because then they'll have 3 wins against top 25 opponents. But at number 7, we have Texas. Listen, Texas suffered a loss against Oklahoma. They came down to the wire. You can argue that Texas is really the best team in the Big 12. I would agree with that. But they're going to need help if they want to get into the college football playoff ranking, or into the top 4 come playoff time, because they do not control their own destiny. And at number 6, we have Oregon. Some people argue that Oregon is the best one-loss team. I disagree. Though Oregon is peaking at the right time as well. Listen, they have a close loss on the road against Washington. They have a dominant victory on the road against Utah. Oregon is they're primed to have a rematch with Washington for the Pac-12 championship game, and that will decide which team more likely than not is representing the Pac-12 in the playoffs. And at number 5, we have Washington. Listen, I believe that Washington should be ranked in the top 4. You guys know how I feel about Ohio State. I wouldn't even have Ohio State ranked in the top 4, but I'm not sold on them. I have Washington ranked at number 2, Georgia at number 1, Michigan at 3, and Florida State at 4. So I would really just switch Ohio State and Washington their positions. But Washington, best offense in the country, Heisman frontrunner, and Michael Penix Jr. And Washington controls their own destiny as well. If they can win out, then there's no question they'll be in the college football playoff come January. And Florida State, number 4. Listen, Florida State undefeated, best team in the ACC, has wins against LSU. Perhaps the weakest strength of schedule of all the teams, particularly in the top 10. But if you can win out in the Power 5 conference, then you're more likely going to make the playoff. And Florida State once again controls their own destiny, but if they get one loss, then they're not going to make the college football playoff because their strength of record is not strong enough. And Michigan, number 3. Listen, I think Michigan's one of the best teams in the country. Best team in the Big Ten by far. Offense is non-pareil. Defense is strong as well. However, recent cheating scandals and allegations surround Michigan. How's that going to affect their rankings? How's that going to affect their eligibility and their ability to play in the postseason? That remains to be seen. So a lot of questions surround that. Georgia, obviously number 2. I think Georgia's the best team in the country. They're ranked at number 2 though. Another team that pretty much controls their own destiny. They can win out. Though they do, like I said, they have a tough matchup against Missouri this weekend. I think even with one loss Georgia team can still make the college football playoff. And then at number 1, we have Ohio State. Listen, the committee is sold on Ohio State. Obviously, they have one of the best defenses in the country, but their offense is non-existent. I'm not sold on Ohio State's as a whole. I don't think that they are that good, and frankly I do believe that they're going to, once they lose to Michigan, they will all but eliminate themselves from the college football playoff race. But right now they're ranked at number 1, and we'll see how long that lasts. But guys, that is it for our reactions to our college football, to the first college football playoff rankings of the 2023 season. Let me know what you guys think. Did the committee get this right? What your rankings look like? Leave your thoughts in the chat room. I would love to hear all about it. But guys, we'll be back again same time tomorrow with another edition of our show, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, continue to stay safe, be vigilant, make smart decisions, and peace.